Hi there, John Bruscio from Arch Virtual here, and I wanted to make a video showing you a sneak peek at some of the features that we're currently working on for Immerse Creator. There's a couple of pretty exciting features that I wanted to show off. What I'm showing you here is just an early developer build. This is just an internal build that we use for testing different features. Definitely not the build that we're going to be launching, but something that we're using as a prototype internally. So what I'll show you first is if we create a shape and put it in the scene like we always could before, you'll notice that we now are moving the delete and duplicate function over to a context panel per selected object. So depending on the type of object that you have selected, you'll be able to manage your duplicate and delete and other features in the context menu for the selected object. So you've always been able to delete and duplicate inside the Shapes menu, but now we're actually going to be moving that over into a context menu. And you'll see this go away eventually, and we'll have it only in that menu. So for Shapes, you've always been able to do that, but that's also the case for assets. So if I, for example, put a chair into the scene, I can now delete that asset. We haven't been able to do that before. It was definitely a much needed feature, and now we have the ability to delete and duplicate assets that you have selected, which is pretty awesome. So the other thing is, let's go into our settings menu. We've got a bunch of new settings for snapping to grid and freezing position. So this is going to enable much tighter control over your modeling. This is definitely a work in progress. We're working on a couple of different tweaks and ideas for how to implement this, but currently what you can do is set global values for limiting your position to a grid. And let's say the grid size is currently set to 0.1, so as I move this around, it's snapping to a 0.1 increment. If I freeze rotation or a freeze position, I can only move it currently in the Y or the Z axis, but I can't move it in the X because I have that checked to freeze position. Now, for a cube, it may not necessarily matter, but if you're positioning a door or a window, or you're working with some kind of an object where you just don't want it to be able to rotate in any direction, then you can, to move in any direction, you want it to stay locked along an axis. You'll be able to use that freeze position to do so. And likewise with limit to a grid, we can have it rotate at a snapped grid increment, and we can also limit the rotation. So now we can only rotate it in the X or the Z axis. So that's pretty cool. Definitely a work in progress, definitely something we're working on improving, but just wanted to give you a quick sneak peek at that because I think that's going to be a pretty key feature. The other thing you'll notice is we've got a couple of temporary buttons right here that we're experimenting with, the store and the inventory button. You'll notice, in the current version that's on Steam, when you open the app, it takes a while to open. So you're waiting. It might seem like the app is frozen for a while, but that's because it's loading all of the assets that are in this menu before the app even opens. So it's actually loading up. There's like almost 100 assets in here that it loads. So what we're going to do is we're transitioning over to a streaming asset. So basically what that means is you'll be able to open Immerse and you'll be able to get started working and modeling and using the shapes and lines and everything else while the assets are loading in the background. So it will no longer bog down your initial load time, and it'll just start to stream in. Once you open the app, your assets will start to appear. And the other key feature of that we're working toward is the ability for you to select what type of assets you want to use. So right now we have all kinds of different assets. We've got street lights and signposts and vehicles and interior decorations and landscape. Well, that might not be what you're interested in working with, so what you'll be able to do is pick the things that you're most interested in and model with those. So for example, you might just be interested in using landscaping options. So you'll be able to go into the store, and you'll be able to select just the assets that you're looking, just the landscape assets, and those will stream in and they'll be available in your inventory, and you'll be able to work with those. And if you're in multiplayer, if someone else in this enters the scene and they don't yet have that asset downloaded, it will automatically prompt them to start downloading the same assets, and then they'll be able to see what you see, and you'll be able to collaborate around those same assets in multiplayer. The other feature that we're working on is a new UI for containers. Now, currently you have containers are like layers, so you can just basically duplicate layers, you can turn layers on and off. You can delete layers, but you can't turn them on and off. You can't scale them to specific values. You really don't have a lot of control over the containers. So we're going to be changing this into a system that's much more like a typical layers like you would see in Photoshop or any other creativity application, where you've got different layers that you can manage. Visibility, you can isolate layers, you can merge layers, you can change, we'll be able to change the scale to a specific value within a container and just have a lot more control over the use of containers. So that'll definitely be a feature that will make it much easier to organize your scene as you're developing. So that's just a quick preview of some features that we're working on right now. We are always open to ideas and input. So if you have ideas for how we can improve this or feature requests, just let us know. We have the support forum, we've got the Steam discussion forums, there's an Immerse Creator subreddit, lots of different channels for you to be able to get us feedback, which we're definitely looking forward to hearing. So that's about it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in Immerse Creator.